Just breathe out. That's how we create space to see and hear. Because sometimes it's a still small voice. Sometimes it's just an impression. And when your mind's shouting at you and you're responding to your mind, sometimes you miss the impression or the nudge. You know, cutting horses, they train them and you can literally you begin to tell them direction with the inside of your thighs. It's not the reins. And they begin to read the rider. And there's no yanking of the head. It's just a yielding now to even the intention of the rider. The horse begins to yield. Do that one more time, just releasing our mind. Take a big deep breath in, acknowledging spaciousness, spirit, presence. Our very being. We're here within space and time to manifest the divine, to be aware, and then to share what we see. Was not Christ in our midst, they will say. The more we learn to yield. The manifested presence is without effort in this space. It's the nudge. It's the impression. And we live in such different times that everything is offering itself to our mind. And that's why neutrality is so important, where our opinions aren't activated. A place where we're not seeding or fertilizing the seeds of thought with emotion. Therefore, we can create something eternal by our spirit rather than a bunch of temporal things. Ageless beings you are. In form right now, and your form will change, and it's changed even within space and time. It's changed. You're being reformed physically, and you're being reformed in your mind to the Christ within you. There you are, God. I didn't have to even look. There you are in my breath, in my being. It's no longer the Father running down the road to meet the Son. There's no distance. That story is done. We're already one. It's awareness that we seek to know, consciousness of what is. We can all be in the same room and some be conscious of what's going on, and others just hear a song or hear words or see the person next to them. I'm writing a blog on curiosity. I just heard curiosity killed the cat, and so I started looking that up. But the real saying said, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. You have more than one life. Learning to be curious of what's beyond what we see, feel, hear, taste, touch. Perception, to see past it all. And to respond from within. This is why we can rejoice or have gratitude when we begin to see weaknesses and responding to the temporal. It's okay if you acted like a jerk and responded to somebody. It's just showing you where you can go deeper still. There's not a road to run down. It's deeper still within you. Literally, it's a breath away. So right now, we're going to take one more. Let's just release the false identities the false forms that we've placed on ourselves, and just rest in the spacious place within us. Ready? Let's breathe in. And we just release. And we move into the not knowing. Because where I know, I can't. Those that say that they know, there's nothing you can add to that. But we love the mystery. God's teaching me how it's fun to look at somebody and see past what you see. Why don't you just look at the person next to you? Just look in their eyes and see past what you see. Just rest your eyes. It is weird. Release opinion. Don't make me do it to you. You feel really weird. And rest your eyes, and you begin to discover. We take everything back to the sky, God. His mercies are new every morning, and we look to the sky like it's mercy on me. Nope, it's you looking at that one that just acted like a total idiot, and you rest your eyes, and you look again, and you realize that's just behavior attached to this world. It's not even who they are. And you allow the labels to fall off, and as you allow the labels to fall off, they fall off of you as well. Are y'all there? Will you remind me, Monica, to take the offering at the end? Are we recording? You ready? Good morning, God's house. We're going to do some transitioning. It's going to be a bit different. Even next week, we've been in that, what does Jared call it? What is it? Liminal. I thought that was the soda that had lime and lemon in it. But Jared talks about us being in a liminal space, that place in between, and that's where we are. And even, with the worship, it's not just that there's some people missing, we're in that space of transition. And it's so good for us, you guys, not in church, in your life. It's good for us because it begins to show you where you source your yielding, if you will. If you need something really exciting to get you excited, then your source is external. I was talking to somebody. Are you waiting on me? You can come on the stage. No? He doesn't like to be on camera. This is Mr. Mabasa, who we love. We so appreciate you. I was talking to somebody. Actually, they were telling me they were talking to somebody. And they were explaining how most people, we're not taking an offering right now, we'll do this at the end, but they were explaining how people give out of emotion. That's why you get a long message every week in churches. That's why you get a song. Hopefully the song moves you. It's not even a matter of that people are wicked and they want your money. It's that we're dealing with, not to be rude, we've been very immature and we respond on external things rather than hearing God. And when it comes to money, which is the core of your life, it's what you attach the rest of your week to, your vision to, your dream, right? So it's positioning yourself in every area that you're hearing, right? And it's the same way with worship or, getting the crowd going or anything like that. But when you begin to learn to create that space, okay, you're going to hear from spirit within you every time. I said this a few weeks ago when they said, man, I could have listened for another 6 hours. And I said, you understand what you're hearing right now is within you. Literally. What you're hearing and what you're seeing is within you. right? It's within you. And so then you realize that perception is on me. I don't like that when I'm a victim. Because I remember when we did youth camps. Are y'all out there? Did I get you all too quiet and rusty? Do you guys need to get up and do a jumping jack? All right. I remember when we did youth camps, and I remember one time, and there's 500 kids in there, and we worked our tail off, and my mind's very busy. I'm like, oh, we love you, God, spiritual warfare. And then I'm like, dang it, we didn't plug in the hot dogs, And then I'm like, I get back into it, and I'm like, so that the kids come up and say, we found a keg of beer in the dorms. No, we never found a keg of beer. But we did check everything out in the dorms at camp, and we'd find like 6 packs of beer and stuff. Are y'all there? Yes. You're going to have to respond back to me. Let's go. I'm going to respond out of here, but I'll like it. And I would be like, my mind's everywhere. So then after a service, maybe I'd miss part of it. I'm like, how'd it go? And I'd hear one person come out and say it was a disaster. Well, I say the word disaster like usually when it comes to like a hurricane and like they lost their house. You know what I mean? Like I use those extreme words for things like that. And I'm like, so my emotions would be like, oh my God, it was a disaster. Like all this work, it was a disaster. And then I remember this one person, and she was very intuitive, and I'd ask her how it went. And even though it may not have went what we thought, she could see what God was doing in it. And then she would give this report. It was like, whose report are you going to believe, right? And when she said it, I was just like, oh, okay. But it just taught me that it doesn't mean everything's always good what you see, okay? But then you begin to see what you see from within, and you can see what God's doing in the midst of it not being good. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to talk today. Alex is prepared. We'll see if she's coming in or what's up like that, because I prepared as well. And mine's very different. We're going to talk about the inner shrine. If you want to call it anything, let's call it inner shrine that resides the divine. That's what I wrote down. We're going to talk about responsibility. We're going to talk about intention. So I was meditating on this and just thinking about this, and I'm developing this in my life. I'm thinking about Abraham. Okay? You guys know the story of Abraham, and there's 3 major religions, like they engulf half of the world's population, these 3 religions that claim Abraham as their founder, as their father, right? Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And so I'm looking at this man, Abraham, I'm like, man, you are a stud. You are the man. Okay, here's this guy. He was a Chaldean. He, worshipped the stars and the moon. Like he wasn't doing his thing. He was just doing his thing. He didn't know. He didn't have a routine. And God begins to speak to him. And God noticed the capacity that Abraham had, right, to father and be about others, to yield to his voice and procreate, and not just physically procreate. When he showed him the sands of the sea and the stars in the sky, he wasn't just telling him these are going to be just from your loins. It wasn't a physical thing. It was a spiritual thing that God was reproducing from this man. Okay? And this is what begins to blow me away when I'm thinking about Abraham, you guys. His whole church, his whole relationship, everything he knew about God was on the inside. All of these religions that came out of it, right? So Islam, I wrote these numbers down, and it's hard when you start researching it because people are still discussing and arguing about different things, okay? So Judaism has between 3 to 18 different groups, sects, S-E-C-T-S. I said that, and someone was like, sects. Am I saying that right? Am I going to get a response from you if I just keep saying sex? See, you guys are so carnal. All right. So Abraham was the father of Judaism, and there's 3 to 18. That's not very many branches. In other words, they took Father Abraham and they wrapped it up. And they you guys are still trying to say it? Stop it. I have 2 men on the front row saying sex. Like, I know you said sect. I got to say the T. All right. And then you have Islam, and one of the numbers, those numbers were pretty low as well. Like the higher numbers were 70 to 76, different packages, groups. Can you show me that stadium, that picture of that stadium? So basically, here's this man. He sees a God within himself. It's the unseen God made visible within himself. And all these groups were birthed out of it, okay? Christianity, as you know, has between 40 and 45,000 different branches, groups, denominations, sects. That stadium is in Florida, and that holds about 45,000. Now, these people aren't in unity. Each of them are right in their belief, and to walk with them, you need to believe like they do. Birthed from Abraham. Okay? So we're seeing a nice little stadium, but all of a sudden I start going, oh my God, what have we done? We switched it. You can feel that. We switched this inner shrine, this inner voice, this invisible God into a form that we could see that's tangible. We wrote our creeds. Abraham didn't have a creed. Yeshua, when he came, he brought Abraham's relationship back to the planet, the kingdom within. He didn't have a creed, right? And so in it, there was no mosque. There was no synagogue. There was no church. There was no group to join. There was no physical building. There was no sacrifice. I mean, he gave to Melchizedek. I mean, wow, but it wasn't you have to do this. It was out of his heart he gave 10%. So here's this man knowing nothing. Now, can you imagine? You don't know anything. Nothing's being offered to you. No one's confirming if you're right or wrong. And you're living by the impression within. Wow. Nothing in between you and him and God. What a journey. What an honor. God saw the capacity of this man. And if we need rituals, that's okay. And we have preachers, and that's a good thing. And rabbis and priests and, sacrifices. And he never had a special holiday. He didn't acknowledge any of the things that we packaged up. I'm not trying to present to you that those things are evil. But those things began to distract people from the inner shrine. The external things that were happening is what distracted people. And it's what distracts us today from the inner shrine, from the inner voice. And we're crying out in our music, we want to know you, we want to know you, we long for you. But we're distracted from the union that's already there. It wasn't about whether he was making these mistakes and things like that. I mean, even whenever he did pull in and his servant and Ishmael was born, God's like, I'm going to bless him too. You know what I mean? You did this in your flesh. I'm going to bless him too. I mean, God was committed to this relationship. God is still committed to this relationship. And we're packaging it up and we're dividing it amongst ourselves. And it's distracting. I mean, we fought wars over it. We've burned people at the stake. These women in the Middle Ages, they were considered witches. The Catholic Church burned millions of them because they were directed by the inner shrine. Because man cannot control you when that relationship, when all you do is from within. And so you want to make the earth angry, you be somebody that doesn't follow anything but that impression within. You'll make me mad too. Because I had expectations, dang it, and what are you doing? What, you're going to do this? You're going to move? I'm yielding. And it's just the nature of people, it's the natural nature of people to take what we see on the inside and put it on the outside, and it's beautiful. Remember I said, the guy, he said that he believes that religion is art. It's like, I want to show you what God showed me, okay? But as soon as you do it, when Jesus spit in the mud and he made mud and he heals that guy's hand, his guy's eyes, he put it in him. If we made a religion out of that right there, right? Just a religion out of that. This is how you do it. I mean, do you know how many services I've been to? This is how you do it with oil. This is how you do it. This is what you have to say. Nobody ever told me to spit in the dirt and slap mud on someone's face. I guess we're too advanced for that. Now, I have been in a service where they took a whole freaking bottle of olive oil and dumped it on somebody because the anointing was still in the oil. And I've been to plenty of services where they raise a lot of money to buy, something else. Ash Wednesday was a constant thing. Sorry, Catholics. All of it, and I think God's okay with any of it, you know what I mean? But none of it's going to get you to the inner shrine. It could offer you something. It can be a door. Sorry. How many times have you guys walked around a building 7 times? Anyone done that? Listen, all you got was a little bit better thighs, you know what I mean? A little burn in your calf. It wasn't even 7 times that they walked around, right? It was 7 days. It was 7 days, and they walked around more than that, a lot more. I feel that God has told us today that if we will do lunges, everyone has to do the lunges around this building 17 times.
I'm out.
I feel that God has told me if we will do that, we will get a really good burn. Maybe walk like this. It won't be the anointing. You want to come up, Alex? Come on up if you want. And I'm laughing at myself, okay? It's easy to see what someone else is doing, but we do the same rituals, right? I remember Sandy Brown. You guys ever heard of Sandy Brown? She was my pastor when we lived in Las Vegas. It was the only church I've been in that they were like, can you tell the people not to wear, half shirts and flip-flops on the worship team? Like, why? I remember one of the ushers, he had purple sleeves. And this is like Josie was not even a year, and Josie's 33, okay? So he had purple fluffy sleeves that came down. He had a gold tooth. This is before gold teeth were cool. Some of you guys still don't know that some gold teeth are cool, whatever. Anyway, and he was a pimp just straight off the thing, and he's ushering you in, Everybody in that culture worked at a nightclub in Vegas. Well, Sandy Brown was our pastor, and she's just great. Anyway. But she said she remembers that, okay, I knew I have to get holy. Like, how do I do this when she was first coming to God? So she created the tub, had the tub, and she's seen people do candles. Like, there's candles. A lot of churches have candles and stuff. So she lit candles, and she heard about speaking in tongues, and I think she said, lama lama sinky or something. She just said one word over and over. And you know what? God met her right there. Yeah. And she had an encounter with God. And she's laughing when she tells the story because she had enough sense to know that it wasn't the candles or the Lama Lama Sinky or the tub. Right. That it worked later. Did you guys not remember the Lama Lama Sinky? Oh, that's how we used to tell people to get filled with the Spirit. Just say Lama Lama Sinky till it hits you. Lama Lama Sinky, Lama Lama Sinky, Lama Lama Sinky. Llama, a llama is sinking. I don't know. I can't believe you guys didn't know this. Okay, so here we're talking, and I'm just going, God, this week I'm going to really start setting some things and rearranging some things, that it's going to be good, and really putting out who we are. I know that I've said it, but, we don't even have it on the website, who we are, what we do. The biggest thing is intention when it comes down to the inner shrine or being led. Everybody loved grace, and that's wonderful, but it's going to come down to the intention of your heart. And God was able to look at Abraham and understood that his intention was going to be for God, which meant for others, because you're not going to separate God from others. Would you throw up the scripture? I think it's 1 John 4:20. You guys like how I acted like I thought it was in my head, but it's written right here. I think 1 John 4:20, basically it's talking about if you love God. He first found his own brother. I guess it's not 1 John. Don't try to throw me. Don't try to throw me. I was acting cool and act like I knew right where it was. All right, let's see. That's still not it? Oh, that's John. John 1 before the John. Basically, if you love God, you love people. You can't say you love God and hate people. Well, that word hate is meseo in Greek. When it says to love God, and you have to hate your family or whatever, and we translate it as hate, which is kind of really rude. It really means in comparison. That word is a comparative word. It means to love less, okay? It means like it's not even to compare. If you're going to be one of my disciples, you got to, it talks about that. Well, here, if someone says, I love God, I agape, okay? We love God because he first loved us. That word is agape. It's not just love. Okay? I yield to the nature of love, which is unconditional. It's a love that's not from this world. It's a love that always forgives. It's a love that always gives. It's a love that never recognizes when it's done wrong. I mean, all the things that it says in Corinthians 13, it's a love that it's just there to give and to heal, and it doesn't recognize behavior, and it's not contingent on anything but who the nature is, the nature of itself. So you can throw that back up there. If someone says, I agape God, in other words, it says, we love God because he first loved us. It's that reciprocal nature. I've received the nature. This nature only gives. I'm going to give it back to you, God. I'm going to love you, God. If I say it out my mouth that I love you, yet I hate my brother, yet in comparison with that love, that nature, if I take the nature that God's given me and I love him back with it, but then I love her out of a natural love, it's false. He is a liar, for he does not love his brother whom he has seen. How can he love God whom he has not seen? Let's say that again. I've received this nature that's not of this world. Love is a really weak word in the English language, okay? It's unconditional. It doesn't recognize behavior. It only knows to give and to heal and to set free, and I've received it. And I love it so much. Thank you, God, that you gave it to me. I'm giving it back to him, and this reciprocal dance is happening, okay? I can't say that this is happening and I love God if it all of a sudden when it comes to Chris, that's unavailable. Because I can see God right there. I can see God right there. I can see God right there. So if I'm operating out of the nature that doesn't recognize behavior, that doesn't know when it's done wrong, that always forgives, if I'm saying I agape God, I give it back to you, this is our nature, we're in one with this, if that's my confession, you're going to see it with you. Or it's a lie. I don't have to work up love for you. You're irritating the snot out of me, right? Not you. You're really mean to me. You hurt me. Go a little bit deeper into your nature. That nature that you love God with. Not the nature that you love God with and you're not sure he's for you when you have a bad day or when something doesn't turn out the way you wanted it. That's not agape. That's nothing to do with the truth of who you are. That's an emotional stage. Okay? It's all in us. You don't have to feel guilty. And guess what? You don't have to try to love God more. You guys don't have to try to love God more. You don't have to feel guilty that you haven't loved him enough. You just understand that's a different faculty that you've been trying to love him from. And you can recognize when it's operating in your life because you're walking through and people are insulting you and people are acting like jerks and they're cutting you off in traffic and flipping you off and doing you wrong and taking your money and, doing all these things. And all you have back, all you're knowing is this nature. It's a telltale thing. It's not a guilt thing. It's a telltale thing, right? So all of a sudden you're like, I don't have it in me to love that person. Awesome! You now are becoming aware that you need to go deeper within you because you do have it in you. If you'll tap into your truest nature, you can give them God. This is how we will know, the world will know that we are his disciples by our nature. So there's not guilt in it. See, the guilt is from the same level of the love that is just temporal anyway. I got to try harder. Forget that voice. That's the voice you laugh at. I don't even have to try. Locate that spacious place that's within you that you're learning to operate from, and there it is. And suddenly you'll be looking at that ugly, mean person that has hurt you or did things against you, and suddenly you'll be able to see the cute little child that God loves. It's happened over and over. I remember one time this man that was a leader in our life, and he wasn't that great in his behavior, and he made it hard to be under him. And I remember Darren having, especially for Darren, and then Darren had a dream. He had an encounter because Darren is activating this relationship. He's activating the nature. Yeah. I'm sure he went through a long time going, man, I need to work on loving him more. I need to forgive him more. All that surface crap that we do. But then he's cultivating this agape love. We love God. We agape God. We give the nature of who we are back to God. This is the dance. He's committed to that space. And in that space, he has a vision of this man when he was a child, and his dad's in bed with two women and, used to beat the crap out of him. We knew these things, but all of a sudden, Darren was out of space and time, saw what formed the behavior, and the nature came. And from that day forward, that's all that he had to give him. Did the things he did still hurt on this level? But the pain is what's the telling thing for us to go deeper into the truth of who we are. There's an ocean that doesn't end. I was reading about Jacob's well, and because it's Abraham and then Isaac and then Jacob, so I'm reading about Jacob's well. Have you guys heard of Jacob's well in Texas? Anybody heard of that? It's crazy. I got caught up reading about that last night because I was like looking up Jacob's well and the wells that Abraham, these guys dug. A well is a life springing. It's for the generations. It's life water, especially in the East. They didn't have any water, so that's what a well represented. Well, the Philistines would fill their wells. So the word Philistines means flesh. Okay, so I'm looking this up. I type in Jacob's well. Just check that out later. And if that's all you get from this, that'll be sad. But like over a dozen people have died in this. It's right outside of Austin. And I said to Hunter got in like at 3:30 last night. And I'm awake. And I said, have you heard of Jacob's well? She goes, yeah, I've been there. I'm like, oh, crap. What are you doing going to there, It's a water hole. It's a sinkhole here right outside of Austin. And it's a beautiful place. But these divers would go into these caves and not be able to get out. And I mean, one report said over 20 people have died in there. Then they blocked it off because people would get, it's such depth, and they're going up through these caves, and they wouldn't have enough oxygen, or they'd get stuck or whatever. They put up a thing where people couldn't get through it, and they came back to it, and it had been removed, and there was a sign that said you can't control us or something. So these people are going underwater and getting in these caves, right? And now they put up a heavier thing, and only professional divers can go because there were so many people dying. But that's not the well we're talking about today. That was my distraction. But I'm thinking of Abraham, and he had the capacity to release to the next generation. Release wealth. Release. There's two things, you guys. When we had kids, even when we had kids, I was very young. I don't know how I was this smart. I didn't know I was that smart till I talked to other people, and they weren't that smart, and I was like, man, this must be God, right? I had two things I wanted with my kids. I knew it wasn't just for my pleasure. Oh, I have a kid. This is great, It was that they would hear the voice of God, that they would know how to hear and connect to the voice of God, and that they would want to hear the voice of God. Now, the second one I'm not in control of. We got the first one down, parents. It doesn't just mean physical parents, people that God's put in your life. Helping them prophesy over them, helping them see why they're on the earth. What this signature means on their thumb, why it's different than everybody else, that they're not spending their years wandering, that they understand their identity. In fact, the other day I was in the Spirit, I was having a conversation with one of Hunter's friends in the Spirit, and I'm sitting there and I'm telling him, I said, listen, because he thinks it's one thing that he's trying to make a decision on, and I know it's just identity. He's looking for identity. And I said, I could write a book on it. That's what I'm saying to him in the Spirit. And I hear God said, well, you did. I'm like, oh, okay. We did. We literally wrote a book on I Am Identified. I'm going to read it. Darren wrote it, and I rewrote it, and I put all the stuff to it, and it took me a long time, and I didn't want my name on it because I was weird about that kind of stuff, and I always hid behind things. But God's like, you did. The desire of helping people find their identity, man, that's intention. So when I get a hold of grace, it's not, and I'm like, woo, I don't have to feel guilty. I can, drink the Kool-Aid. I can, have a margarita. I read this meme on, I read it to Blake this morning. And this describes our life in our little town for years as pastors. The lady said, somebody called my mom because they saw me trying to buy alcohol at the store. And the end it says, I'm 41. And that's literally how God trained us. I heard a lady say one time, she said, how to live life in a glass house. And, living life on the stage. You have your kids up there. And I'm telling you this because God had us in this little town that we didn't leave people without opinion. Darren was taking their rapture away in 94. And they wanted to kill him, Don't you take our I didn't even know what rapture was. I'm like, I'm Catholic. We don't care about that. But anyway, so we live in a town that people either loved us or hated us, or heard about either one. You know what I mean? Like they were not without. Even when you went to the grocery store, you didn't go out to eat and be without it. Darren was one time on the treadmill, and he's on the treadmill, man. He's trying to work out. There's like 4 treadmills in this little bitty place. And this lady comes up, and she's crying and said, I judged you. And she starts confessing to him. Well, he's like, who hasn't? Can I run this mile? Can you let me run this mile? He that's why he wouldn't go to the grocery store or anything like that. It'd be someone that would confront him or confess or whatever, But it was God in our life to put that much pressure on us in this little world that we lived in. Because God had to test our intention because we knew, number one, we're parents and we were raising up a generation. And if our intention wasn't for them, if it was to make us look good, because that was the pressure, don't dress like that, don't do that, don't say that because it won't look good on me, then my intention is about ego. And we would have to get to the bottom of that. And so our kids made sure they embarrassed us enough until we did. Amen, right? Darren's son we lived in the middle of town in a big house, and Darren's son's driving donuts in his yard and throwing beer cans at it. They're like, amen, in the middle of this town, like any reputation we thought that we'd have, it would be even more smeared, And then you want to get up and talk about it, and God's like, no, just let people think what they want. You know what I mean? Intention. What's your intention? Abraham, is it really about others? Is it really about the next generation? I've poured out my grace on you. You're not condemned. Are you going to, I remember seeing people in this city drive like a bat out of hell, which was one of my favorite albums, by the way. Anyway, they were driving, and they're chasing. Did you like Meatloaf? Did you? Aren't they great? Not the food. Please don't make me leap Meatloaf. Oof. Anyway, I like Meatloaf if it's burnt, but is anyone hanging with me? Does anyone know the band Meatloaf? All right, not the food. Okay. So I remember seeing this guy and these kids driving. You've seen these people. I hope they're all kids. If they're grown people, they're kids. Driving like a bat out of hell in the middle of Houston. And I would say, I'm glad my daughter's not in there. And that's one thing you're going to look for someone that's going to date your daughter is, do you drive responsibly? Do you understand anything beyond the rush that you want to get right now? Right? And so as we're learning grace and I'm talking to our leaders, I'm like, it's one thing to live like that and have the freedom to do all these things. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. But if you have a child in the back seat, if you have a generation that you're raising up, if you're really about others, Abraham, you're going to build a well of living water. Yeah. And so God made sure, and he pressed us at every point to get the intention down. And that's one thing I'm saying this to God's house because we are going to be intentional. It's not about condemnation on the things we choose to do or don't do, but it's about being intentional to impart to a young generation. Does that make sense? Or to a generation. So intentional. Love God, love people. Here he meets with Melchizedek and he says, blessed man is Abraham to God, the highest possessor of heaven and earth. So here Abraham was, and all the other people on the earth, their gods, they could see them. They were like animals, and they were stone and made out of metal. Abraham's God was unseen. I mean, he didn't fit into any of it. He would have been a crazy man. You know what I mean? And here he is, and he's trusting. What an amazing man. In 1 Colossians 15:15, it says, the Son, talking about Yeshua when he came to the earth, Jesus, talking about you right now on the earth, is the image of the invisible God and the firstborn over all creation. That word image it's a mirror-like. It's a representation. It's close in resemblance, like a high-definition projection, a prototype, more than a shadow. You're the literal form or impression of God in the earth. It says he was the firstborn. The firstborn of who? The firstborn of many that came after him. Literally here to leave our impression of who he is. We see, we yield, and people are like, oh, there's God. Okay? Invisible. He wants to be visible. And here's where we're going to land. Let's look at John 4. Are y'all with me? Yeah. So here we are. And Yeshua, Jesus is bringing back to the earth Abraham's walk. They're fighting wars. They're doing all these constructs. They've put people in bondage and in the name of gods. And they've done all these things. And we've built our kingdoms, not just like it is today. The racial and the religious division. They took Abraham's walk and we claim him as our father. But then they're packaging it up and they fragmented his walk with God into something they could see on the outside of themselves. And so here Yeshua comes. And he walks up, and you guys know the story. He sees a Samaritan woman at the well, at Jacob's well, not the one in Austin. Now, the Samaritans, I've researched them just a little bit. They were they called themselves the sons of light. There was a reason they didn't like him, you know. Let me see. I think it was, the king founded Samaria in 880 before Christ's existence, okay? So like 159 years later, after Samaria was founded, and let's see, I thought I wrote down what the word means. Almost 160 years later, the Assyrians took the Israelites captive, and they reestablished that whole region with pagans. Tradition said, people will still debate and talk about it, okay? So tradition would say that that's who the Samaritans were, the descendants of these pagans, okay? So all of a sudden, they were on the outside. And then they had the audacity to say, you don't have to go to Jerusalem and worship in the temple. They criticized the temple. So that was the biggest offense, all right? So they're criticizing that construct. They have their own construct. We can worship on this mountain. So boom, boom. This is through generations of the dislike, right? Let's see, what else? There was a proverb, a saying that was passed down with the Jews. He who eats the bread of a Samaritan is like one who eats the flesh of swine. So there's all this racial and religious animosity. There were racial differences as well, but it was really a religious thing. Because, anyway, that's the whole thing. People get caught up in that. But because you could become a faith and have a different race, and you would be considered of your faith. It would literally almost be like you changed your race, okay? So they don't need to worship on there. They go to their mountain. They criticize the temple. They edited their Torah. There was things they left out, kind of like all the Bibles that we do today. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, we don't have to do that. And then they didn't celebrate certain holidays. So they were. This is for generations, and so they were done. They were outside of them. And we know even yet Jesus said, I came for the lost house of Israel. I didn't come for the Samaritans. When he sent his disciples out and he told them to cleanse the lepers, lay hands on the sick, raise the dead, he told them not to go to the Samaritans. He wasn't against the Samaritans, but he's breaking his own rule, even when he healed the leper, the one that turned and came back. We knew that he thought they were good because he would use them in his parables when he talked about the Good Samaritan, but he also knew what he came to do. So here he is, and he's at a well, right? And he asks this woman for a drink. Now, to ask somebody for a drink of water at that time was worth more than food. And it was the men didn't carry the water. The women carried the water. That was another one of those constructs. And oftentimes, these are a few things I've learned. Oftentimes, lovers would meet at the well because that's when the women were away from their homes. Did you see that girl at the well? I'm going to the well. It's evening time. And she might take her thing off, and they get to see their face, and they would meet at the well. Because she's away from her family, she's going to the well. And it was such an embarrassment at times for men to get water. If a man wasn't married or didn't have daughters or anything like that, they would ask their neighbor. Can you imagine? That'd be like a guy going, can you fix my tire? Fix your own tire, The women are like, carrying these big old pots. You got room for me to get some water? So it was a thing, you know. So all these taboos that were very offensive that he was willing to say, hey, you want to give me some water? And you're going to give, if someone's perceived as a prophet at that time, they were like foretellers, fortune tellers, seers. They were judged or ranked according to if what they said came true. And they would go to prophets to find out where their lost animals were. Who's my husband going to be? Like it was a continual thing. Okay? So she's perceiving that he's a prophet, and she also knows that if you give a drink of water, I mean, that's about the most a woman could do. Maybe I'll get a prophet's reward. Yeah. Right? So there's this whole element going on, and he knows what he came to do. He's bringing Abraham's walk. He's bringing the inner shrine. He's bringing the kingdom within back to the earth that's full of constructs. Listen, you guys were wired to be alive in this day. Okay? You have what it takes if you're alive. But there's more constructs than any other time in history. There's more thoughts, there's more things hitting our mind than any other time in history. I would dare to say very few of your thoughts are even original. They came from our dad, they came from culture, they came from our coaches, they came from lies we believed. All the original thoughts that you're going to have are going to come from the inner shrine, not from the shallow place. And here Yeshua came to bring back this deep, deep walk, this deep awareness, this deep understanding. And she begins to go, hey, now, we know how to worship. These Jews in Jerusalem think you have to go to the temple. We have more freedom. We're non-denominational. We can clap our hands in church. We're so sad that they're still in bondage. They don't even let a woman preach. I used to have someone, every time I was going to preach, he goes, what are you going to preach on? He'd tell me that scripture. I'm supposed to preach on how women shouldn't preach in church. And I said, that's why you're not preaching. Just kidding. Anyway. I know you are, but what am I? So she's like, we know how to worship. We don't have to celebrate those holidays. We have more freedom than them. There was a reason that they're despised. And then she's going, are you telling me? Like, we don't have to worship in either of them? Like, we got it right. They're the ones in bondage. And he says, woman, a day is coming that you're not going to have to worship on the mountain. A day is coming, guys, in your life where you're not going to have to worship by the constructs. You're not going to know God by the things you know him right now. You're not going to have to read about it. When do we get to the point where we need no man to teach us? Like right now, I can be opening my mouth, but who's teaching you? Where's your dependency? Our dependency has to be struck on the inner shrine, that whatever's getting into you or what's coming up in you, what's being highlighted in you is your revelation. It's not something I'm handing to you. I mean, God's going to use me. Spirit's going to use me to awaken something that was already there. That's why I love hearing from you, because people will say things like, man, what you said, and God, I'm like, I don't think I ever said that. Wow, what revelation you already had. It's just that fire getting brighter on the inside. That's why it's really good to open your mouth when you begin to see something. Because it's being seen, it's in the inner shrine to be manifested. So if you don't write stuff down, say it out. I'll say it. I mean, you guys, it's so dorky. Like, I do not sing. I cannot sing. But all of a sudden, I'll hear something. I'll record myself singing. I come back and listen to it. I'm like, oh, my God. And it's just for me, right? But if I don't do it right now, I'm missing it. Like, God's curiosity killed the cat. I didn't make that into a song. Smelly cat. I didn't. That's in your soul. That is not in your inner shrine. Okay, John 4:3. He left Judea, not 1 John. John 4:3. He left Judea. He went again to Galilee. But it was necessary for him to pass through Samaria. And he came to a Samaritan city besides the village. It's going to read a little bit different because this is like it's a version that's closer to the Aramaic. Had given his son Joseph. Verse 6, and Jacob's spring of water was there, and Yeshua, weary from walking, sat down by himself at the spring at the 6th hour. Verse 7, and a woman from Samaria came to draw water, and Yeshua said, give me water to drink.
For his disciples had entered the city to buy provision for themselves. And the Samaritan woman said, how is it that you, a Jew, would ask me, a Samaritan, for a drink? aren't you guys beyond us and your temple and your Jerusalem and all your setup? And, we're the New Agers that Christians aren't allowed to talk to, she's saying, right? That was for some of you guys. Okay, verse 10, Yeshua answered and said to her, if only you knew what the gift of God is, what the gift of Allah is right there. If only you knew this package was from presence. I know you have it wrapped up, how you're supposed to do it. I know you packaged up what you saw. You made a religion out of let's spit and make mud. We made a whole religion out of that. No, we were that was too beyond us, but we made whole religions out of the oil or whatever you're supposed to do. I know you got that packaged up, but if you knew what was in front of you, this package is of the Allah, that word is, this package is of the Spirit. This package is the breath of God. This package, this gift that's in front of you is going to bring you back into the spacious place where you're not going to be here or there, but everywhere. This is what true freedom is. Yeshua answered, verse 10, and said, if you only knew the gift of God who is standing with you, give me a drink. You would ask for what he has, and he would say, I'm giving you living water. Living water. Life-giving, sustaining truth, constantly flowing and never stop. Verse 11, this woman said to him, my Lord, you have no bucket and the well is deep. From where do you get this living water? Verse 12, are you greater than our forefather Jacob? So all of a sudden, notoriety. Listen, I'm a descendant. You're greater than, can you hear that in her voice? Like, what? I know what's up. I'm a third generation, or whatever she is. He who gave us this well, and he drank from it, and also his children. I mean, we knew that this was God giving this to us. Verse 13, Yeshua answered and said to her, everyone who shall drink from these waters will thirst again. And he's describing the inner shrine. Verse 14, but everyone who will drink of the waters that I will give him shall not thirst for eternity. Forever. That word eternal is unending. It's a contrast to fleeting life. It's the reality of God's life manifested. He's telling her right now, I've brought something back. The gift that's in front of you is a door. I'm just a door. If you'll open this gift, you can go through the door. And it's everywhere, and it's anywhere, and it's within you, and it's always, and you enter into a state of worship. It's not a sacrifice on an altar. It's not a raising hands. It's not a worship service. There's not a beginning and an end. It's impossible to have a beginning and an end. If you could open this gift, if you could walk through me, the door, you're going to understand that it's everywhere. It's the breath you breathe. It's what's sustaining you always. You're going to move into such a place of peace, not just peace when you get it right, not just peace that when you feel the presence externally, but a peace that's going to spring up like water, like a well that never ends. You think this water is awesome that your forefathers gave you, which thank God they gave it to you. This is nothing compared to what I'm opening up within you if you can perceive. If you can perceive, and she did perceive. But he was waking up something on the inside of her. She understood the work of the water, religiously and physically. She was a woman. She understood every single day hauling water to her family. She understood when someone asks you for a drink that you give it to them. It was culture. That's what you do. You work for it. This is how you get it. And he's like, you don't have to get it this way. Just open the present, right? Right in front of you. Verse 14, everyone who drinks this water, I will give him, he shall not thirst for eternity, but those waters that I give him will be springs of water that shall spring up. That means bubble up eternally. That means everlasting. That means bigger than you've ever understood. It's not temporal. Verse 15, this woman said to him, my Lord, give me these waters that I shall not thirst again. And so I'm not coming to draw from here. Not catching on. Yeshua said to her, go call your husband and come here. I've heard a couple different things. Of course, people say different things. But if she was married 5 times, a woman at that time didn't choose a divorce. So something was going on. I heard someone say that she couldn't have kids, and that she was barren. But I'm thinking if by the 3rd husband, he could do a little research and think, this one's not going to produce for me, not to be rude. But at that point, it was all about having kids or you're cursed. So I don't know that that's the deal. But I do know that it wasn't just her being a hussy, just going, I'm out. It wasn't her choice. This is it. And then him even calling her out and saying that she's the man she's with right now, that was not openly. So she's like, oh my God, he's a prophet. Y'all with me? I perceive you're a prophet. Verse 20. Our forefathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where it's necessary. That word necessary is it's a must. This is where you contact God. Verse 21. Yeshua, will you worship Yeshua said to her, woman, believe me that the hour is coming. That means it's here right now. It's awakening. It's right now within your presence, okay? In which neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. Isn't that crazy that you could be in a worship service and you could think you're so sincere and you're maybe even cry because you're getting a little emotional and it could not be worship? You know what I mean? You're not awakened. You're doing it all from this soulish thing. It's the same thing. This is the same body that I could curse man with. And it's okay. But then I can see, oh, wait, there's a deeper place where it's this spring. It's just this constant bubbling. It never ends. And from that space, I don't even have to try not to curse that man because there's the nature. The spring within me is the nature. It's my truest nature. I'm trying to get somewhere that I already am. And God's awakening us to it. And that's the good news. That he didn't ask our opinion. He placed his nature within us. Verse 22. You're worshiping what you do not know. That word not is never. It's denying it as fact. No is you're worshiping what you're not even aware of, what you don't perceive. That word to know means properly to see with the eyes, and it bridges to a metaphorically sense from the inside. It's mental side. It's like when I say, oh, I see what you mean. So all the symbols, it's not bad that the symbols were bad. I used to pray the rosary. I'd like to get one to see if I can remember any of it, okay? It's not that they were bad, okay? But it was a physical thing that was meant every symbol, every church, every book, every physical Bible. Every word you get, it's something tangible that you can hear that was meant to cause you to know, to perceive, to cross over into the unseen. Because it's in the unseen where you see. Everyone say that. It's in the unseen where I see. That's an oxymoron within our brain. We know that we are worshiping for salvation, or the life is from the Jews. Verse 23, almost done. But the hour is coming, and the hour is here right now. It's this time. It's this season. It's the divine time has arrived, he said. The hour is coming. It's divine right now. Do you see it right now? I'm trying to open you up right now. When the true worshipers, when that word true, listen to this, you guys, are genuine, true to fact, emphasizing organic connection, authenticity, connecting the visible fact to underlying reality, true inside and out. That's the intention. Listen, guys, we have to mature where we're not hearing what people say, but we can discern intention. The intention in our own life, and we allow Spirit to show us, oh, I want you to act this way for me. I need you to do this. It's about me. I thought it was about righteousness, and I'm fighting for righteousness, right? I want to do this because it makes me feel safe, and Spirit begins to show you this. And when you go, oh, that's not me, I'm going to move into authenticity. Because you're authentic. Some of you maybe haven't even met your authentic self. Because it's only love. It's only love. You're going to fall in love with you. Blake does. He's in love with Blake. But all of a sudden you start seeing and you're like, what? All the struggle and how I saw myself, it was all lies, you guys. You've judged yourself according to behavior in your own mind. You've been your worst enemy. What a jerk you've been to you. And what you do is it's humbling to lay down that opinion. Yeah, but I've been a drunk all my life. I've been selfish. I've been through da-da-da-da. You can lay down that opinion. The opinion is what's holding you to that false state. When you get to the bottom of it, you're only agape. You're the nature of God. Maybe it's undeveloped, but it's a time. This is a time as we perceive and we see on the inside We see only glory. We are only beauty and glory. And then we operate from our truest self. That's a true worshiper. Not one that sweats when they start the song. I usually was one that sweats, so don't. I used to say, man, if you look too pretty to worship, then you just look too pretty. You know what I mean? Like heels and all this, you know what I mean? Like, because we're going to worship, we're going to dance, you know. Whatever. Are y'all out there? Yeah. Because the more effort you gave it. Really what it was that more effort that I'm giving it is what it took for me to get to that space. I would be in such depression, and I would get up here. I couldn't sit in the back because then I'd be distracted because I told you my mind's like, blah, 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 blah. So I'd be up front, and then all I can hear is, I really hope the music's loud because I'm going to sing really loud, and it's not very good. It's really bad. Who's singing so off key? Oh, it's me. Okay, sing. And, I'm singing and I'm worshiping, and I really wanted, a few minutes before it started, I wanted to die. And so I'm just taking those words, and I'm pushing to move into each word. That's me. It didn't require all that, but I needed that to get to a space where I wasn't believing this anymore. That's what it would take for me at the time. There was a time I went through such depression that as soon as I got away from it, it would be back on me. And so I knew, this is another thing I don't think people are too smart in, that you can learn. If Darren and I were having problems, I've never talked to somebody that's going to feed the problem. I'm not going to listen to country music. I like country music, but it's not time. I need somebody to tell me to stay with him. You know what I mean? There was only one person in my family that I would ever tell when we were going through stuff because I knew how much she loved him. It was Teresa. Everyone, she's listening online. She's coming in. Because I knew the state that I was in and what it was going to take for me to get to the place where I needed to be. So it's not bad. The symbols, the ritualism, all the packaging that you did, the 44 denominations. God love us. It's not bad. It was our best effort. But it's been a distraction if you stay in it. Darren, he mastered. It was so irritating in a good way, but irritating in a good way, but irritating. Because he mastered listening within. And I'm trying to have a conversation and tell you a whole lot of things. And you're listening to something else. Most of the time when he was counseling somebody, he listened to the first few things and he'd be like, he's like, they don't really know the problem. And he'd lean in, what's the problem here, God? What's going on? God began to whisper to him. So irritating, but good. We're mastering this. You want to come on up, Alex? But the hour is coming, and now is when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. All right, let me break that down real quick. Spirit is the word breath. Okay? Breath in Aramaic. We translate, Greek said spirit, but even when you look into it, it's breath, right? True worship, it's not just this breath, because it goes into the ruach. It's not just the breath that he breathed into Adam's nostrils. It's the living breath of that we join with God. True is the word, I think it's sharara, and it's like the intertwining of a rope, the threads of a rope. They're so strong you don't know which one's which, that you can't tear it apart. It's true to form. That's what it would be in Aramaic, okay? And in Hebrew. Over here in Greek, it would be like authentic. It was like absolute. Let me read. It's powerful. So true would be genuine to fact in Greek, emphasizing organic connection, authenticity. Sharara, that's right. Tightly bound together like strands of fabric forming a strong rope. Bonded. It can't be broken. That which is strong and vigorous acts in keeping with universal harmony, a sense of right direction at the right time, harmony with all. So to worship God in truth, it's this intertwining, it's this harmony with the breath. It's not an outward obedience. It's not something we physically do. It's beyond even setting our mind on God, okay? It's a rhythm that we're so intertwined with, it's the same rope. You now don't know which breath is coming in or which breath is going out is God, because it's all him. But then your life begins to get into a rhythm, and it's a true rhythm. You know how people are saying, the universe is telling me to do whatever, okay? There's some truth to it. They're talking about there's a rhythm in the universe, right? We don't have to just live by the rhythm of the sun and all that. Our bodies are affected by it because they're attached to this realm, right? But there's a rhythm of spirit that we can begin to operate on, and that's what true worship is. It's an authentic tie. It's a bind. That means what I say, you don't know what part I said that was God or what part was Sheila. That's what true worship is. Does that make sense? You want to go? This is Alex, by the way. This is my middle daughter.
Hello.
But you may have to stand up.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to tell a quick story, as always, on getting to that agape space within ourselves. Because listening to it, you're like, yeah, I want that. I want to be able to get to that space. I want that agape love, that unconditional, that source within. But that process of what that looks like, and this has been happening across the board in my life and in a lot of people connected to me and friends and family, so I know that it's happening across the board. The ability to find peace in watching these constructs fall apart. Your ability to find peace in that is how far you're willing to go to break the constructs within yourself and have peace. And to find that agape place, that true, authentic self that she's talking about, is a death process. And not in a scary sense, even though it can feel very scary, but it is death to the constructs within your life that you have relied on for a sense of self, or a sense of being, or a sense of this is who I am. And this last week was a crazy amount of intensity for me and a lot of people surrounding me, friends and family, and situations that were happening. And the reason we can feel this, and there's a growth in the anxiety people are feeling during this time of our lives, and almost this anticipation. And what that is there's a fire starting. It's heating up the gold to bring impurities to the top so that we can see what's in us. And your ability to go within to see what's in you will be how far you reach that authentic self, that agape, and that peace. And what that looked like last week was, this has been building for a while within me. There's situations happening right now that feel really bad. They don't feel good. There's a lot of an energy attached to it. It feels really heavy, an anticipation. And it's that fire starting to burn. It's that fire starting to bring up the impurities. And last week, it was intense. I just could feel it on my chest like somebody was sitting on me. And I look back at the past year of my life, and I've definitely been in a fight or flight mode since I had my daughter. And I look at this pattern, and I was definitely set up because I'm apparently stubborn, and I didn't know how stubborn I was and unwilling to see some of the things within my own life. And so I look back from the start of being pregnant with my daughter, I was on this path of constructs being torn down. I quit my job at the time, which was my dream job, which I found a lot of identity in instantly. I have this newborn baby as a single mom. All the constructs of who I thought I was as a single person are being torn down. The ideas of what I wanted for my life, they're changing. They're being, in my view at the time, being torn down. I'm also going through this process where I'm watching my father's health kind of deteriorate at the same time as being this single mom with my new baby. And in it, there was so much grace from God. But I'm watching my entire world deteriorate in front of me, and all these constructs start to fall down. And even after his passing, your brain is still trying to make sense of things. Your brain is still trying to hold on to whatever it can. And I was trying to hold on to whatever brought me some sense of who Alex is, what she has been, some type of identity of what I needed to be or who I wanted to be or who I needed to think I was to be okay with myself.
Your mind tells you you're going to go insane.
Your mind, yeah, I'm getting there to the insane part. And so these constructs are being torn down, okay? And the pressure, you guys, I wanted to say that fear, we've talked about several times that the fear that's being released in this atmosphere, it is our friend. Because fear brings out, when you're watching something and you feel afraid, that resonation within yourself is bringing out what's in there. There's a fear in there. Fear is your friend. Fear is here to bring up those impurities, to take it out of the gold, to make it pure gold.
This, you can just leave this on. I won't say. When she's saying it's, just like I said, you hear from the inside and you see from the inside, the fear you're feeling isn't from the outside either. It's not from your inner shrine, but you have the capacity in your mind to feel it or you wouldn't feel it.
And so last week, very strong, intense emotions. I didn't know really where they were coming from, not that I needed to. And I've been in a situation where being a parent of 2 now, I've been feeling immense amounts of pressure and identity loss. And the freedom that I once was familiar with, I no longer have. All moms can say amen to that. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to pour into these children. I love them so much. At the same time, they're triggering the heck out of me and my own childhood wounds and, trauma and trying to heal that. And it's just all this pressure. And we're in the living room, and Joni's sitting on top of me, and she hits me. She's a little violent. And I go to pick her up, and she brings her knee up and knees me in the face. And I go, like this, but probably a little louder. Just this anger, and I've been on the edge of this anger for a little while. And I scared the kids and Ramsey. And because I just stood up and I was just kind of like, ugh. And I walk to the bathroom and I fall apart. Like I just am like undone. I can't believe I just angry at my 2-year-old for accidentally kneeing me in the face. And it did hurt. So the pain is what shot that anger through me, but that anger was already there within me, right on the edge. And so I go into the bathroom and I fall apart. Like I just lose my crap. And I'm just like, why is this anger in me? I'm the person that's uploading meditations online. Like, where is this anger coming from? Where is this fear coming from? Because there's only 2 seeds, which is something Darren taught us. It's either fear or it's love. And so I'm sitting there, and I finally get to the point where I had so much guilt in watching my father get sick and his health deteriorate that I didn't want to be angry at him for passing. And I didn't want to be like, I'm mad at you, because it didn't feel right, because I knew the pain that he was in at the end. But I was angry, and I was mad. And so I'm just sitting on the floor, in my bathroom, and I'm just like, I'm pissed at you. I had this new baby, and I don't know what's happening, and you just left. And all this stuff just started coming out, all these emotions and this anger, and I just wanted to get rid of it. And I've always been someone who, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel gross. I don't want to feel angry. And my brain has done a really good job of just kind of forgetting what I don't want to remember and then being able to just be happy. And since he's passed, it's like my brain, which is a false reality, right? My brain's trying to make me okay in this fight or flight situation, and it's literally telling me that my dad's just at home. That's what my brain is telling me. Yeah. And so I get to this point where I don't know what's real. My brain's telling me something. Yeah. I know it's not real, but for some reason I have to let it resonate within myself to be okay so that I can raise 2 children, because if not, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah. Pretending the whole time.
Pretending. And we live in this state for 20, 30 years of just trying to keep what's coming up down. And then we're angry, and then we're bitter, and then we're jealous, and then we're like, oh, just hide that away. Why do you think Christians have been called hypocrites? It's like, don't look at the ugly stuff, just shove it away, put it in the closet, And when I realized, and I just heard this voice, God was speaking to me and was like, stop running from it. Go into the anger. Go into the pain. Like, let it fully immerse over you and go into it. And so I see kind of, in my mind, I'm picturing like this black energy, which is what it felt, just this black moving energy that I couldn't get away from that was suffocating. And the suffocating and the suffering was coming from me trying to ignore it and pretend like it's not there and trying to be okay. And trying to do, the Christian thing. Well, I just need to love harder. Or I just need to forget, just trying to constantly deal with my demons instead of dealing with my demons. And so I go into it, and I just see myself go into this dark energy, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm sitting with the emotions of anger, and I'm sitting there with the emotions of just, I am losing my mind. I don't know what my reality is. Everything that I once thought was real or gave me some sense of self is an illusion that's not real. It's not real. Everything that made me feel safe was just an idea of what I thought that was giving to me. And in that place is where agape is. Because the further you can go within yourself and allow love in that space of feeling the anger and the hurt and the pain and the bitterness and the jealousy is where that love resides. Your authentic self is behind all of that. It's in the middle of all of that. It's not about getting rid of all of that. It's about embracing it and saying, yeah, I'm angry, but I'm going to let it go. I'm going to release it. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to try to shove it down. I'm going to admit where I am. I'm going to speak my truth because I am in this place. I am mad. I had a brand new baby. You left before she was 1. I'm pissed about that. And I'm going to allow myself to get into the middle of it. And as I went into the middle of it, I felt so much love. And all of a sudden, I saw creativity shooting out of it. And I saw creation. And I heard God say, create from the pain. Create from that space. Because until you do, it can't be released. Until it's expressed, it can't be released. Until you stop running from the pain because it seems too painful to acknowledge. Until you stop running and you go deeper, you're not going to be able to have unconditional love. And if I can't have unconditional love for myself, if I can't find agape within, then there's no way that I can give it to anybody else.
Right.
And I'm having these triggers with my children, and I'm looking for the love, but I can't even find the love for myself because I haven't been given it to me. So how can I give it to them? How can I push past my ego for them when I'm not doing it for myself? And so I sit there in the pain, and I don't like pain. I don't like it. It's not fun. and I'm brought back to the day that I was birthing Joni, and God told me that it was going to be a painful birth. And it was horrible. I mean, it was just puking from all the drugs. They gave me my epidural wrong so I could feel everything, and they didn't believe me, so they kept giving me more drugs, which just kept numbing me from my knees to my toes and not the rest of me. And I remember the excruciating pain, and I remember thinking in the middle of it, am I going to live through this? Like, I thought I was going to die. And that's how it feels. But the reality is on the other side of that pain is a birthing, is a love that you've never experienced before, is a depth to you that when you walk into the room, people feel it off of you. The depth that Darren had on the inside of him, the reason that he could walk into a room and you could feel his presence, you could walk in and you could just feel it. Like all of a sudden something just hit you. This being was in the room, is because he had the ability to go within. He had the ability to go deeper within himself, to go into those parts of himself that no one else wanted to look at, that you don't want to see, the ugliness within you. He was the ability to go deeper within there and find God's love in the middle of that. That's what creates presence around you. That's what creates the energy that when you walk in, people can feel God on you because you're willing to go deeper within yourself.
And that's the authenticity.
That's the authenticity. It's not about this outward thing of doing more for people or trying to love more, or trying to give more. It's about going within and giving it to yourself. And then when you're giving it to yourself, naturally it radiates off of you. So these constructs in our world that are being torn down, this idea that we were safe in America, or this idea that we lived in our safe little bubble, it was all an illusion anyways. It wasn't real anyways. We were just pretending like all the other things weren't happening. It was temporal. The only thing that's constant is change. The most suffering that people are experiencing right now is trying to hold on to what's already gone.
It's already gone. Yep.
And I was talking to a friend, and she was in the same state, like where you feel like you're losing your mind and you don't know what's real. That is the best place that you could possibly be. Because in that place, there's no more ego. There's no more soul. There's no more flesh. In that place, you just say, Spirit, I'm losing my mind. And Spirit goes, it's okay. There's love here. There's love in this space for you. There's agape here. There's unconditional. And in that space, that's when I can recognize the oneness in you that's within me, because I know the oneness that's within me. But to know that oneness, you have to go through death. You have to go through shedding. You have to let it go. You have to let it experience it. Stop trying to push it down. It's trying to come up. The earth, the energy that's happening in the earth right now, this pressure, this fear, this heating is trying to bring it up. Is trying to show you, hey, that fear is in you, but it doesn't have to be. That anger is in you, but it doesn't have to be. Let's experience it. Let's find love in the middle of it. Love isn't on the outside of it.
Right.
It's in the middle of it. And I was raised, and I went to other churches. I traveled a lot with my dad, and there was this idea that these things about ourselves that were ugly or bad was something not to experience, was something to shut out, was something to hide. And that's how Christians got this hypocritical stereotype. Because they were still being this person it's still coming out in gossip, it's still coming out in anger at home, it's still coming out behind closed doors. But then you're trying to put on this front like, oh, well, I'm a good Christian that tithes. But it was just hidden. And now we're experiencing a pressure that's not allowing things to hide anymore. And it's for your good. It's for your higher good. It's for the expression of love. It's for the expression of God on earth. It's for the ability to see oneness in everything, because you will not be able to see it or experience it until you experience it within. And I'm not going to say that was easy. I was very stubborn, so very extreme things had to happen in my life to get me to a space that says, I don't know who I am. I don't know. And it's okay that I don't know, because there's love there. And if there's love there, that's all I need. If Spirit's there, that's all I need. And guess what? Spirit's there every time. Love is there every single time. And things are going to feel too heavy, and things are going to feel like too much pressure. I can't possibly go there. You can. And that's where freedom is. That authentic self is just going within. And when I'm laying on that bathroom floor and I'm losing my mind, which is an amazing feeling, you guys. Everyone should just lose their minds and be free. There's this groaning that's happening within us. There's this, if you've already said in your heart, oh, I want that depth, then it's coming for you. And you're going to have to go within. Because that's all I did. I made a decision in my heart. I want that. I want presence. I want Spirit. I want to be able to look the people in the eye that I don't really like and still see God in them and still love them from such a deeper place that's not past my triggering and past my emotions and past my childhood stuff. I want to be able to see Spirit in that person. When I watch TV and I see these political figures that they're trying to demonize, I want to see God in them. I want to feel it in here. And when I made that decision in my heart, I didn't know what I was agreeing to, but I was agreeing to go through an illusion of death that I thought of who I thought I was and what made me safe and what protected me, and I had to lose all of that. Now, apparently all the Begley women are very stubborn, because it had to happen in a very dramatic way, that literally the foundation of safety that we thought our lives were built on was removed. But it was to bring the greatness out of us. It was to say, go deeper. We didn't really have to go much deeper before, or for me personally, because I had a Father who did it for me. And he said, I want you to have it for yourself. I want you to go within. And so this time, I'm just so thankful for it. It feels like crap. It feels really bad. It doesn't feel good. But embrace not feeling good. Embrace it. Go into it. I promise you Spirit is there. I promise you Spirit, that is what did you call it? The altar? The
Inner shrine.
The inner shrine within. You have to feel safe within, because once you're here in your mind, you know you have a trust within yourself. You have you trust Spirit within you. You trust God within you. It doesn't matter what happens outwardly. It doesn't matter what circumstances. It doesn't matter what they're saying on the news. It doesn't matter what war is about to come into play. It doesn't matter, because that fear is on such a lower vibration. It doesn't even resonate with who I am. So I can't even hear it. All I hear is how I can release love. All I see is another opportunity to release love. All I see is another opportunity to release oneness and to feel that closeness together.
That's David, when Darren said David could have used a marshmallow. The giant was coming down. He had cultivated that space. The whole nation was trembling in fear. But he didn't try to hear something different. He was like, I'm in covenant with God. This guy's not. And Darren would say he could have thrown a marshmallow and he would have come down.
And listen to that voice of fear within yourself. It's telling you something. If you're feeling anxiety or you're feeling fear, there's something there for you to experience. There's something there for you to release, to let go. But that's not going to happen without the experience of it. If you're, and this has happened to me, that's why I say this, and I said this before, when I've watched the news and it just like fear just consumes me. That was already there. It couldn't consume me, it just came out of me.
Yeah.
And it resonated with a fear that was already within me. How do I get rid of that fear? I go within that. What is that fear trying to reveal to me? What is the belief that I had? Oh, okay, well, God doesn't always come through because he hasn't always come through in my life, right? So that's a fear in here that maybe he won't come through this time and then this will happen. Whatever it is, it's to bring you there. It's to bring you to that truth. Because once you see what the fear is, then you can dismantle it and say, not for me. Not for my life. And it's happening whether you want it to or not. I was talking to a friend, and she's going through this experience, and there was so much fear there. She had to get to a state where she thought, she was being attacked spiritually. Remember when we used to think that? And I said, it can't be something outward. It has to be something within. So this circumstance that is happening is to bring out what's within, the fear that's within, that's been controlling your life for 20-something years. And it was a lot of anguish and pain for her to get to this point. But when she saw it, release. When she saw it, instant freedom and peace over her life, because she could see it. She thought it was this. She thought it was this relationship, but it was this fear behind it of this loss of who she thought she was. And that's where a lot of these fears lie, in this loss of identity. Mm-hmm. And that identity can only be found within. It can only be found when using that fear to show you what's already there. And let these constructs fall apart. And it feels like death. And I know a lot of us have experienced death on a very personal level, especially in the past 2 years. But if we can go into that, we can allow the mix of grief and emotions we don't even have words to put to. If we can move into that, there is a level of freedom for you. There is a level of depth for you that people can't even imagine. There's a level of depth. Have you ever been around someone that you're instantly intimidated and you don't know why? There's something about it's because there's a level of depth to them that they were willing to experience within themselves that other people don't even have a mind to wrap around. Mm-hmm. And we here are a people of depth. We're a people willing to go deeper. I was working out the other day and I heard this voice say, if you don't stand on the foundation that Darren built, and you don't build on it, you'll be buried in it. And if we hold on to what was, we're going to miss what is. Because what was is already gone. Yep. What you want to hold on to, you're just holding on to in your mind because it's already gone. The moment's already gone. You're holding on to the feelings and the emotions, but the memory, but the situation itself is gone. Those moments in time, they're gone. And it's to bring this depth within us here as people who carry such oneness that when we get around people, they can just experience the love without ever having to say or do anything, because you're allowing the depth within. That's all I have to say. But I love you guys.
Say that if we don't build on the foundation, say that one more time.
Hello? Oh, he turned me off right away. Dang. She just wanted me to repeat what I heard when I was working out, which was just that if we don't build on the foundation that he built, if we don't build on the foundation, that we'll be buried in it.
You guys go ahead. You can stand with me. I was talking to somebody, and we were just talking. It was a good conversation. And just said, I guess I just really miss Darren, like his preaching, And they weren't meaning it towards me or anything like that. I said, I do too. But I do know that we're in a different day. And that's what she's talking about. It's not about Darren. It's not about Sheila. It's not about any human. It's about moving with the plan for your life and the time. And all these constructs that came out of Abraham, all these 70 different constructs in the Muslim world, and half a dozen in the Jewish world, and over 40,000 in the Christian world. Okay, all that those were where people were holding on to something that was fleeting, and as soon as you hold on to something that was fleeting, it separates you from the one. The true worshipers are so intertwined with spirit; it's the same. And this is something, I'll just throw this. We're going to go deeper into this later, but one thing I learned historically in all three of those religions, if you will, there's two groups. Anybody know what they are? In all three religions, there's mystics and there's literalists. The mystics from every group, Muslim, Judaism, Christianity, have more in common with each other than they do their own religion. The literalists are the ones that fought and caused all the wars and killed each other. What am I saying to you? There's things that we've read, there's things that God took and we held on to it literally and fought over it literally when the mystics could see behind it and move into the flow. Even the ones from different religions wouldn't fight and kill each other because they could see beyond the construct. So in the middle of it, of course, we're still in constructs, okay? But mysticism is the mystery. It's moving past those things that we're holding on to that are fleeting anyway. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, you want to say something? You going to pray? Oh, wait, I have to take an offering. Darren told me I had to every Sunday. So if you will throw that up there, if I'm still online, if you want to text and give, we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys hearing God and sowing in this transition time. If you still give by cash or card, raise it up real big and we'll get somebody. Brittany, will you help us with that real quick? Get somebody to get buckets for that. Just keep your hands up. Go. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you.
Hello. I don't know. The other day I was sitting in the backyard and I was looking out over the lake.
Back there, Jordan.
And I was listening to some music, and Elevation Worship came, I think is who it was, but and they just wrote a new song, and they said it was about Nineveh, Jonah and the well. Everybody knows that story, but one of the questions that they posed with it was when Jonah was swallowed by the whale and spit out, he still done what God asked him to do, but he didn't surrender and go do it.
Yeah.
He just went and did it because he was told to.
Yeah.
And that's where I was for a long time when my wife passed. And still get there from time to time. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing what I'm told to do. But it's one of those things where I never surrendered and said, God, what am I supposed to do? And that's where when it gets to that point when you finally do stop long enough to surrender and say, okay, what they were saying is you finally get to that point to where the rest comes easy, and then you finally realize, okay, this is how we're supposed to do it. Okay, let's go from there. Guide me that way. But this silly story of the guy in the well that we all learned in Bible school, and a song pretty much had to show genius me how to do that. And it's just something that, how many times do we actually really surrender because we don't really know how to surrender, because we're still trying to figure out how to process it in our mind, how to go through it. And that's where it's tough. And if you can sit down long enough and relax your mind long enough, then it comes to you.
Yeah,
So,
relax your mind.
and that's where I'm at right now. So
I love that. And those of you that are listening online, and we don't take identity in it. My husband passed away like a year and a half ago, and from that time we've had this man that just spoke, his wife, within the last 4 months. We've had beautiful family members that have, I know it's happening all over the world, but this group of people here, for us to be willing to surrender in the midst of it and not remain in the black place that Alex is talking about. And so that's the depth that we're talking about. And there's so many people that I'm hearing about that have lost loved ones. And there's a lot of people that listen online. And in it, you guys, what Alex is talking about is going into that space. And what happens isn't just that trauma. It's everything else that you've kept under is what comes up. And so it's because you no longer can control and keep it down. Darren used to explain it like you could be a guy and, you can hold the tennis ball underground, and that's you're keeping that appetite at bay or whatever. But as soon as you shake your hand or whatever, eventually it's going to come to the top. Well, when you go through this level of trauma and things that are happening in the earth, out of God's grace, we can no longer just keep these things down. And the joy as they're removed, as we allow the surrender and let it be removed. And it's courageous. It really is courageous, you guys. Because, a lot of people didn't even want to come back in the church, in the building, because you feel such disappointment with God or, what you thought was going to happen. And just to come is courageous. Anger and mad. I mean, the week after, I don't know if this is true, but I think it is. I think it's funny, really. The week after Darren passed, we're singing Resurrection Power. I'm like, who the hell chose this song? Like, screw you, Jesus, resurrect. You know what I mean? You're in between this space and this space. And your very walk becomes offensive when the trauma hits you that hard. And it's courageous to just keep coming. And I probably wasn't as courageous as you all. I had a responsibility. But I do remember someone telling me, poor Peter, bless his heart, he said, I feel like God, Father is saying, what do you want? This was like 3 weeks after Darren passed. I'm like, he's asking me that now? I want my husband, you dumb. I was kind of like this. Like, I didn't say anything to him, but I was like, truthfully, we already gave that part of our life over. I'm not so dumb. I'm going to start living out of what I want. I want to run. I want to hide. I want to keep this kingdom in place, right? I want to hold on to the things that I think caused me to be safe. But you rest within, and you got to let it all fall anyway. So, go ahead, Brittany.
So like a couple weeks ago, I saw a vision of us, and it was like Jesus had a tablecloth, and he was setting a table. And in it, I just saw Jesus sitting next to me, and he showed me the nails in his hand. And then it's like I grabbed his hand, and then we all, as a body, were grabbing his hands. And as we were looking at our hands, we saw the nail in our hands as well. And as we were just seeing the finished work of the cross, that he's a trustworthy father, because I feel like God right now is just after, I am good. Like I am trustworthy through the disappointment that we've all experienced. And he's just been showing me just his trust and his goodness, and he's faithful. And a lot of that is how you overcome those thoughts of fear or doubt or pain or anger or anguish. But as we grabbed his hands, we all lit up as a body. And I just see as we're restored to the simplicity of the goodness of God and our thinking, apart from our experience, there are going to be things that start to break out in us outside of church, but also in the body. And we're going to experience deeper and deeper things in him, because it's in knowing him and in knowing, like Sheila said, his character, the nature of God. And I know for me this past year, it's been an experience of God pulling out these seeds through pain and just all these different experiences I've personally went through, but in it I saw the source was, if Taryn went through it, then why couldn't I? And so it's so beautiful because I got to experience God's goodness and his faithfulness, that he would take me to that seed and uproot that seed before it could have expanded over years of time. And so, yeah, I just want to just speak that over us. Just, Father, I thank you that you're trustworthy. I thank you that your nature is always good. I thank you that you're not a God based off of my experiences. You've never been a God based off of my experiences, because your nature is for me. Your love is for me, and you love me so unconditionally, God. There's nothing I could do to earn it. There's nothing I could do to strive for it. It's just simply mine because you're good, and because you're good. And so I thank you, God, this week as we start to unveil this fear and this doubt and this disbelief in your nature because of what I saw, because of what I felt. I thank you that you're restoring us to the goodness of us, of who we are, who you created us to be, God, and we just rest in that peaceful place. In Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. We love you guys. Okay. Isn't there a game or something going on today? Playing.
I have a question for you.